Hi, everyone. Welcome to Between Two Speakers, where we talk about speaking and speaking related topics. My name is Marianna Swallow. I'm a professional public speaking coach, and I'm also an instructor of business and professional communications at Loyola University in Chicago.
And I'm Randy Ford. I'm a writer and storytelling strategist. You can find me at firststorystrategies.com. And Mariana, as we are wrapping up the year, we wanted to take a few minutes to look back at some of the things that we have learned this year as it relates to speaking. So
Mhm.
I'm going to just jump in with one of mine, which is that this virtual world really is kind of a small world after all. We have had the opportunity to, because everyone has gone virtual, we have had the opportunity to speak to audiences and clients and meet new people from all over the world. And that has been really cool. There was an opportunity that I had to do an event about pride and the way that some people were going to be celebrating LGBTQ pride this year.
Mhm.
And there was a person who joined this Zoom event. It was a very small audience, but there was a person who joined this from a country in Africa who had just seen it posted on LinkedIn and was
Wow.
to join and said that this was the first thing that they had ever been a part of that was related to discussing pride because it was not something that was allowed in their country. And
Wow.
really cool to just feel like with all of the terrible things that happened this year, that there was some opportunity for different kinds of connection. And it definitely is true when it comes to public speaking as well. So that's one of my takeaways.
That's great. I want to share one of mine, but I want to ask you real quick, how did that feel when he told you that?
It felt amazing. It really did. It gave me a little bit of a chill because this was just a casual conversation we were
Mhm.
having online, just to get ideas of what people were up to, and then to know that this was had a different meaning for somebody. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, felt pretty cool.
I think that's a great point, and I'm taking us a little to the outer ring here, but you probably approach this as, hey, I'm doing one of my regular events and didn't even think about it, but it has a completely different meaning and a very profound meaning to someone who's halfway across the world. So I think that's really special.
Yeah, it felt really special when I realized that gravity of it.
Yeah, it's given me a little tear in my eye. That's kind of nice. So I want to share one of my things I learned this year, which was it doesn't matter what structure you use, but you have to have some structure. And I could talk all day about the structures that there are, least important, most important, pro, con, debate, should we do a contrast? Should we do a compare? But with my students this year, I gave them permission to find a format that worked for them. So maybe they wanted to partner up with someone else and present their findings as dueling critics. I also offered one class to do a debate. And I was surprised. They actually took me up on it. And one pair did dueling critics and another pair did a panel. There were three of them. One was a moderator and the other two men debated. And I got to tell you, those were the most interesting presentations to watch because they were fun. They mixed it up a bit, but yet there still was a structure and they organized their thoughts. So it doesn't matter what structure you use, but sit down and plan it and write out some kind of structure before you take the stage.
Yeah, that's great. And if you're right, it doesn't matter what structure. If you think about some of your favorite TV shows, books, movies, they don't all follow the same structure,
Right.
and they still are successful.
Hmm.
But you have some kind of structure. That's it.
Yeah, and the key is to sit down and plan it because one of the things I always ask classes, whether it's my students or my corporate classes, I'll say, raise your hand if you've ever sat through a meeting where the speaker was blah, 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 and they went all over the place, and you're sitting there wondering, what am I doing here? And I'm sure you've been through one of those. And the reason is because the person didn't plan. So have some kind of structure, doesn't matter what it is, but you must have structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I learned this year, every time that you and I get a chance to teach or coach together, to hear you speak about the communication styles, particularly
Mhm.
DISC styles. And if anyone's unfamiliar, I'm sure you can poke around on mariannaswallow.com and not only find out about it more, but
Right.
ways that you can work with her on it more. But every time that I hear you talk about it, I learn more and more about it. And especially this past year, when I've heard you talking about it, it's really been a takeaway for me that there's no right or wrong way to be a communicator. There is no
Mhm.
right style of communicator, and there's no wrong style of communication. What really is important is understanding who you are as a communicator, what your
Mhm.
communication style is, and as importantly, who your audience is and their communication style. So thank you for teaching me that this year.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for teaching it with me because I think one thing that's really nice, and we can tell our audience here, is I am a DI communicator and you are an SC communicator. And when we present together, the consistent feedback we get is, wow, you two really play well off each other. And I think it's because, I know that the get to the point and the kind of chitty chatty stuff, I put that out there, but then you also bring the rationale, the data, the proof to the pudding. So yeah, we play off each other very nicely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So piggybacking off that, I want to share another one of my takeaways that is related to communication styles. And I learned this from watching you talk about Dumbledore, Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter, as a wonderful commanding speaker. And I watched the clip you shared and I went, yeah, Randy's right. And watching Albus Dumbledore speak finally gave me a model for how you can be someone who isn't chitty chatty and who maybe doesn't love speaking in front of people, but has a subdued presence, is not very loud, but is a commanding speaker. And I've struggled for years to describe to my clients who say to me, okay, great, I'm not a loud, chit chatty communicator like you are, Mariana. How do I hold the attention of a room? I can't be like, Oprah Winfrey. And I would tell them, well, you're still strong in what you do and you know your material. You can be a commanding speaker without being loud. And when they would say, well, how, or give me an example, I really didn't have anyone to point them to. But if you watch Albus Dumbledore, what I admire about the speeches he gives is he is very careful with his word choice. He uses an economy of words. He's not the loudest person in the room, but he has this commanding presence. And that just finally kind of flipped a switch for me like, yep, you can be subdued and still command a room. So I love having that example now.
Yeah, and that was a really fun episode we did of Between Two Speakers that I would recommend people go back and check, where we talked about our favorite fictional speakers.
I
Um,
love that one too. And I just got to tell you, Emma, who's our editor, Emma edited it and told me how much she loved it. So she's like, oh, that was fun. And I believe Susan Dennison even followed up and said she enjoyed that one.
cool. Well, anytime we can make Emma and Susan happy, that's amazing.
Right.
One more thing that I want to mention that I learned this year came from my friend Dana Magnus at the Marketing Brand, and I saw this in a podcast where she was the guest just
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago. And she pointed out that we cannot beat up on ourselves and expect ourselves to adapt or learn new things too quickly. And she made the great point that when we were in school, we didn't just learn things overnight. That we would have sections that things would be in months or weeks long blocks where we
Hmm.
things in class, we had homework, we studied things, maybe we had group projects, that it took time for us to get good at skills or to learn new material. And that sometimes, especially those of us who may be in solo practice or have our own businesses, get frustrated with ourselves for not being able to just turn on and adapt or start something new or learn something new right away. And that has stuck in my mind since I heard Dana say it a week or two ago.
I think that is a great piece of advice or a good reminder from Dana. Another way I've heard it put as you were talking, there was a short talk I saw once, it might have been a TEDx talk, where the gentleman speaking referred to it as when you're learning something new, you're a baby. And if you think about babies, we don't expect them to know how to walk on day one. But you hit on something important. I think entrepreneurial people or self-employed business owners, because they know how to like take the ball and run with it, I think they expect to be good at everything right away. And you're not gonna be. And I gotta say, it's the same thing with my students or my public speaking clients. You're not gonna hit the ball out of the park on the first day, but in a few weeks, probably 6 weeks, probably keep doing it. Yes, you will. So I think that's a good reminder for all of us because I think even as adults, we just have the tendency to get up here and go, this has to be perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that reminds me thinking about, the need to be perfect and maybe not always having everything go super well, either in class or in a speaking presentation. And that's happened to me a few times. Something I learned from talking to you when we were discussing Leslie Knope and how she handles some very, very negative comments in the town halls she has to run. You reminded me that a negative moment or a negative comment is an opportunity to reframe the conversation or to bring things back to the main point or topic. And I was so glad to learn that from you because I was thinking about early in my career when I would have someone who was required to go to the training, they weren't happy that they were there, their boss required them. And undoubtedly, they would usually make some comment like, this is stupid, I'm never going to use this, why do I have to learn this? And because I was young and it was my instinct to just avoid uncomfortable situations, I would just kind of say, well, maybe we can talk about that later. Okay, let's go on to the next exercise. But that really is an opportunity to say, okay, well, let's talk about that for a second. And I know you don't see the benefit now, but maybe can I point out what the benefits of this product are?
Hmm.
So I wish I'd known that when I was younger, but that is such a great thing to keep in mind because I think we all do face some not so lovely situations when we're with a crowd sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's an opportunity, you don't want to, you know, treat someone in that situation as if they were a heckler, but sometimes you could like turn it back on them and say, okay, what is it that's holding you back here? Like, what
Mm,
is it is really problematic about this for you? And let's adapt this so that we're addressing that, like so that we're doing this in a way that is meeting your needs if they're not what we think they are.
right.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. This is good. We managed to learn a lot in a really crazy year.
We did, and I just want to brag to our audience for a second that we cut this down to three each. We were coming in here with 10, so I think you're right. We learned a ton this year. And even though we had to adapt to a whole new work reality, I think we had some wonderful guests and we had some wonderful work this year. And I can't wait to do more of this in 2021.
Yeah, me either. And I hope people will put anything else in the comments that they've learned this year.
Yeah, so feel free to let us know what you liked or what else you want to learn. If you send us questions, Randy and I will answer them. And you can either put them in the comments or go to my contact page and send us a note.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for Between Two Speakers. We'll speak to you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.